Left off looking at the gross anatomy of the liver. So when we look at the liver, it is going to have 4 different lobes. You can see the front 2 here that are separated by the falciform, but then when you look at the underside of it, you're also going to have the caudate and quadrate lobes. Now we're going to look specifically now at how the liver is going to function. Within those lobes, you have functional units that we refer to as liver lobules or lobules. This is looking close up at one of those liver lobule sections. So when you look at a liver lobule, it's this hexagonal section that's going to be made up of a bunch of cells that are referred to as hepatocytes. Notice I will have sections that are highlighted in green. They're highlighted in green because I don't need you to actually be able to label them for this particular section right here, but these are important structures to understand how the functional units are going to be working. So one liver lobule looks like a hexagon. That hexagon is going to have a major central vein running down the center. So here's a close-up of it, of the central vein. And then you'll have this portal triad. The portal triad is going to be at each of the 6 different points on the lobule itself. The triad is going to consist of 3 different things. It's going to have a bile duct that's between the lobes. That's why it's interlobular. They'll have a vein, and then they will have an artery. So all 3 of these are going to be grouped together at each of the 6 points of the lobule, with the very center having that central vein. Now remember, we talked about the function of the liver and how that function of the liver is one of which is going to be metabolizing the digested foods that you had coming in. So your digestive system and your digestive tract was going to allow you to break down chemically the large food particles into smaller food particles until you get the monomers. And then you were going to absorb all those good monomers into the capillaries within the small intestine for the most part. And then when you do that, you're going to then send that blood that has nutrients in it now to the liver. And this is what we're looking at in the liver lobules. We are going to process that blood. We're going to remove toxins. We're going to metabolize drugs, but we're also going to metabolize the food products that are in there. The other major function that our lobules are going to be doing is that they're going to be creating bile. So we're going to look at the flow of the blood going through there and how it's going to work, and then we're going to look at bile and how it's produced and how it will help us with fat digestion. Now I like this diagram down in here because it gives you a more 3D representation so that you can see these little hepatocytes, which are all the individual cells. Those are hepatocytes, cells of the liver. Hepata just means liver. They are going to be connected by these little green ducts that go all the way across that are going to connect with the interlobal bile duct. So the interlobal bile duct is going to be the main portion where all these tiny canals connecting all these little hepatocytes come together and they join at that interlobular bile duct. So the hepatocytes are the ones physically making the bile, and as they make the bile, they'll then push them outward to go to that bile duct. Now, when we're talking about processing blood and nutrients, though, blood and nutrients are going to be coming from these 2 different blood vessels. You're going to have the vein, which is going to be taking nutrient-rich blood, and then you're also going to have this artery that's going to be taking nutrient-rich and oxygen-rich blood. So what's going to end up happening is these 2 blood vessels are both going to dump into this area, which is going to be referred to as a sinusoid. So the sinusoid is going to take all of this blood that's a mixture of the artery and vein blood into the sinusoid, and you'll have macrophages that are in there. The macrophages are there to clean up any kind of debris, bacteria, or infectious things that you can find in there. So this sinusoid, which remember is a capillary, that is going to allow the most free movement between the substances, between the blood vessel and the cells. You're going to have those macrophages just sitting in there waiting to clean that blood up. We're going to metabolize all that blood as it's passing across the hepatocytes. So the hepatocytes are going to get all those nutrients ready to be used by your body. Once you have the blood going from those sinusoids, they are then going to empty into your central vein. So blood from your artery and vein and your portal triad are going to pass across all of these hepatocytes within the lobule. And as they pass across through here, they're going to get things metabolized, removed, and pulled out by the hepatocytes that are surrounding them until you get to that sinusoid, and then macrophages are going to clean up whatever they can, and then we dump that blood into the central vein. Now, in terms of the blood flow, we're going from the triad inward to the central vein. So looking specifically at this, here is our blood flow, which I'm showing in purple because it's going to be a mixture of the blue and the red. We start with our artery and vein in our portal triad. It's going to go across the hepatocytes through these blood vessels. It's going to end up in the sinusoid. That sinusoid is going to contain the white blood cells, and then it gets dumped into the central vein. Now, this is where we talked about the hepatic portal system in the cardiovascular system. From that central vein, we're going to take that now metabolized clean blood, we're going to dump it into our hepatic veins of our liver. From the hepatic veins, we're going to go to the inferior vena cava. So now at this point, we have just put good nutrients that are metabolized, ready to go back into our systemic circuit, and now we're going to bring it to the right side of the heart. From there, you go to the pulmonary circuit to add the oxygen to it, and then you go out the left side of the heart to now deliver the oxygen-rich, nutrient-rich blood to the whole body. In terms of bile, bile goes in the opposite direction. So when we look at the hepatocytes, the individual cells are making that bile. So that bile is then traveling through the bile canaliculi, and that bile canaliculi is going to meet up with the bile duct, which is part of our portal triad. From there, the bile is going to be transported through hepatic ducts to go out of the liver, and then down through the common bile duct to go to the gallbladder, which we will talk about the gallbladder in just a second. So in terms of the function of the liver, we're looking at hematological regulation with the blood coming in and metabolizing all the nutrients from the digestive organs to go to the blood in the liver. The hepatocytes are doing all that work within it. We're going from the portal triad across the hepatocytes, taking out and putting in good things into that blood, and then dumping in the central vein. From the central vein to the hepatic veins to go back into the inferior vena cava so it can go to the heart. When we're talking about making bile, bile's coming from the hepatocytes, going through the bile canaliculi, dumped into the bile duct, which is part of our portal triad, through the hepatic ducts, and down through the common bile duct. That brings us to our gallbladder. So here is our gallbladder. It's on the underside of the liver. It is going to have three components to it. It's going to have that top rounded fundus. It's going to have the body, which is the majority of it, and the neck, which is the narrowing portion, which is going to meet with, over here, the cystic duct, which the cystic duct is going to be a two-way street where bile can go in and out. And then we'll also have the common hepatic duct that we just talked about. So there's the hepatic duct that the bile is going through. Here's that bile duct. And then from there, it can go up into the gallbladder, and then the gallbladder will hold and store that bile. It's going to hold and store that bile until you have fats that you have ingested and then moved into your duodenum. Now, if you remember when we talked earlier about CCK, that CCK hormone is going to be an indicator to let us know that there is fat and lipids within the small intestine. When there are fats and lipids, then we will release the bile from the gallbladder down through the cystic duct, down through the common bile duct, to go into right in here in the duodenum. So you can see it going right down through, kind of passing where the pancreas is going to be as well. The gallbladder is going to store it until it's going to be needed, though. So that bile will sit in there, and then water will be slowly absorbed from it, and you're going to have lots of concentrated bile salts and other components of bile that are going to stay within it as long as it stays in the gallbladder. Now, the way that bile is going to help us with digesting fats, remember, are going to be hydrophobic. They are not going to want to get in contact with water. So the easiest way to not come into contact with water is if you get all the lipid droplets and stick them all together into one large droplet, so that the only part that's coming in contact with the water surrounding it is going to be the very outside of that droplet. Well, having very little surface area makes it very difficult in order to digest those lipids. So we need to increase the surface area of the lipid droplet in order to have digestion take place with our lipases made from our pancreas. The bile salts in particular will go in and they'll go through what we refer to as emulsification. You can see it down here in number 4. There's a spelling of it. Emulsification is where the bile salts are going to break apart that large lipid droplet into smaller lipid droplets, and it will keep them separated by keeping the bile salts surrounding that lipid droplet. Now with smaller droplets, you have an increased surface area, which means that the lipases can come in and more easily digest that lipid into smaller components that you are able to absorb. So as you can see, when the lipids come in here into the duodenum, the CCK is going to be produced, which is going to cause us to release bile because it's going to open up that common bile duct. So we can see that the liver is continuously making bile, about 1 liter per day that it's going to be making within its hepatocytes. We are going to store them within the gallbladder and concentrate it by removing the water the longer it remains in the gallbladder. And then when you actually detect lipids, the CCK is going to be the trigger to open up that common bile duct, causes it to dilate, and that sphincter is going to open up and allow the bile outward to go through that emulsification process. If you're making bile and you're eating and right away you have that fat content within the duodenum, then basically you go straight from the liver and then it's able to almost go right back out, and so you can use it immediately. We had discussed earlier the digestive tract, where you started within the mouth, and from that mouth you were going to take that food and move it to your pharynx, and then into your esophagus, and then into your stomach. From your stomach, you slowly release it into your small intestine. We took a little deviation there where we were talking about those accessory organs, your pancreas, your liver, and your gallbladder, which are all aiding and adding enzymes that will help you digest and break down your food. We're depositing all of that into the small intestine because that's where 90% of your nutrient absorption is going to occur and the majority of your digestion is going to occur, again, because of the pancreas secreting all those digestive enzymes for any kind of food product you need, as well as the liver making bile, which is stored in the gallbladder. Let's look at the small intestine now. So the small intestine is going to be small, not due to its length. When you compare it to the large intestine, the small intestine has a smaller diameter. And the small intestine is going to be divided into 3 different sections. The duodenum or duodenum is the first section, which is running continuous with the jejunum, which is then going to be running continuous with the ileum. So the 3 of those together we refer to as the small intestine. When we look in terms of the deposits of the different enzymes, they were all getting deposited into that duodenum because that's where the main pancreatic duct and the common bile duct were going to be releasing. Now, the length of the small intestine is going to vary based on the person, and the taller people tend to have longer intestines, but they're going to span around 6 to 7 meters in an adult. In terms of the sections where we have the 3 different sections of our small intestine, the smallest one is the duodenum. It's only about 25 centimeters. So that's the shortest section, is the duodenum, that's receiving all those different enzymes and secretions from our accessory organs. That section is also going to have glands that are going to secrete an alkaline mucus. So remember how the pancreas was secreting bicarbonate that's going to help to neutralize that very acidic chyme that just came from the stomach? We also have glands within the duodenum itself that are going to be producing this alkaline mucus that also helps to neutralize that acid, because we don't have the protective layers in the small intestine like we do within the stomach to prevent it from eating away by that acid. The next section is going to be the jejunum, and this is where the majority of your sugars, amino acids, and fatty acids are going to be absorbed. And we'll look at that in a second when we look at the histology of the small intestine itself. The longest segment is going to be the ileum. The ileum is around 3.5 meters long. This is going to be the final absorption area. So this is going to be an area where you're going to be mostly specifically getting vitamin B12 and reabsorbing the bile salts that are going to be in there. So the majority of it actually occurred during the jejunum, where you're taking all those good nutrients, and then the ileum's going to take the leftover stuff and try to get that last cleanup of what is going to be in there. There are also going to be areas in the ileum where you're going to have lymphoid tissue. That lymphoid tissue is going to monitor the bacteria levels in your gut and act as a immune check. So they're going to look at the different sections to make sure there's no harmful bacteria migrating from the colon and back into the small intestine.